you could be losing not hundreds, but thousands of dollars by not taking advantage of an HSA. Now you may say, Brittany, I don't have the money to invest in an HSA, or I don't have any healthcare expenses, so why should I put my money in a healthcare savings account? Today, I got all of those questions answered for you and some additional hacks. So you want to make sure you watch until the end of the video so that you can understand how you can make this account work for you, whether you're 25 or 55. Yes, it spans the ages. And if you are young, we talk about time all the time. And the growth of your money, it actually has little to do with money, more to do with what you do with it and time. So let's jump into it. So what is a healthcare savings account? A healthcare savings account basically is what it sounds like. It is an account in which you save for healthcare expenses. One of the beauties of a healthcare savings account is you contribute pre-tax dollars. When we say pre-tax dollars, it means that the money that you have earned by working your 9 to 5 as a salaried employee, you can put into this savings account without that money ever being taxed. And it is a tax advantage account, meaning that money is able to grow and grow and grow tax-free. And get this, if you take the money out, even after it's grown for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years, if you use it on healthcare expenses, the money will not be taxed. So let's jump into some of the details of a healthcare savings account. Now, one, when you think about a healthcare savings account, I don't want you to think about it as an account that you're using just for healthcare savings. I think when you put yourself in that mindset, then you are likely to use the money for healthcare savings. And we might want to just rewind a bit and say, Brittany, you just said that if I use the money for healthcare savings, then that money will not be taxed. And that is correct. But I want you to use it for future healthcare expenses. Now, when I say future, I don't mean tomorrow. But what I mean is that you're going to use this money many years down the road because you allow that money to grow, to mature as you mature. And that way you have the investing and compounding interest that will allow you to have more money to use for your healthcare when you likely have more healthcare expenses. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the pros and some of the cons because I know that this account is not going to work for everybody. Now, I just mentioned that I want you to shift your thinking about what this account actually is, and I want you to think about it more as a retirement savings account than a healthcare savings account. So that way you know that you're putting this money in and it's being invested for the long term. Now, typically it is offered through your employer, and what I love most about it being offered through your employer is typically there is some added incentive for you to opt in for this healthcare savings account because it also requires an attachment of a high deductible health plan. Now, the high deductible health plan, or HDHP as you sometimes may see it, means that it's a higher deductible, so it costs you a little bit less for the plan, but more because your deductible is higher. And because it costs you less, that means that it also costs your employer less, which often means that your employer, if they are kind, will compliment and incentivize you opting in for this so that they pay less and then they give you a contribution into this healthcare savings account. Now, that works to your advantage because you can't look at that contribution, albeit $1,000, $500, whatever it is, just as $500, because remember, we're keeping this money invested for the long term. And if it's not offered through your employer, you may have to do your research on a way for you to still create this account and allow this to be part of your tax strategy and your wealth strategy. This account is attached to a high deductible health plan. So that is one caveat of an eligibility criteria for having a healthcare savings account. Now, I've been talking about like money growing, and you may be thinking, Brittany, how is this money actually growing? And that is because the money that you put into a healthcare savings account can be invested in mutual funds, just like you put your money in a brokerage account or just like a 401k. Now, one of the other incentives of the healthcare savings account is not only do you invest tax-free money, that it grows tax-free, but you can also take it out tax-free if you use it on healthcare expenses. There there is a limit to the amount that you can contribute to a healthcare savings account. And it changes from year to year, just like the 401k, 457b, such as the IRA, have their own limits that change from year to year. So does this account. In 2025, the limit is $8,550 for a family and $4,300 for a single person. Now, if you are 55 and older, then you can add an additional $1,000 into this account as a catch-up. I just started investing in this account in 2022 for a multitude of reasons that we ain't gonna get into right now. But if you really want to know, then drop a comment below and ask me a question. Why did I just start to invest in this account if it's so great? And let's get this conversation started. Now, if you haven't already, then I want you to hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, click on that notification bell so that you can get all of my videos and the notifications when I drop a new video to help you with your wealth strategy to grow your money passively for more joy and more wealth. I started to invest in this account in 2022, but I actually started working for an employer that potentially could have offered a HSA in 2013 when I graduated from medical school. Now, let's just calculate. So from 2022 to 2013, total of 9 years. And let's say hypothetically that the amount that I could invest in this account was $3,600. If I had invested $3,600 over 9 years, then I would have contributed a total of $32,400 with a 6% annual return on that money at the end of the 9 years. I could have had $47,500, which is about $15,000 extra than what I put in. So I would have had a growth of $15,000, passive growth of $15,000 in 9 years. So I hope that you can see that if you're 25, if you're 20 and your employer is offering this account, then it is your time. It is your time to tap in because you are missing out on all of this growth. And so that's one of the mistakes that I've made, but you know, when you know better, you do better. So just a few additional advantages to this account is that unlike an FSA, the HSA money never ever, it never expires. It never expires, so the money continues to grow with you, unlike an FSA, which expires at the end of the year, which you don't use, you lose. That is not the case for an HSA. So you never lose this money. This money never expires. Another benefit is that it's portable. It doesn't matter if you change employers, it doesn't matter if you change healthcare providers or insurance providers, then this money is still your money. And that's great because it's supposed to be used for future healthcare expenses. And remember, we're thinking about it as a retirement account and not as a healthcare savings account. I've included the biggest advantages. Now let's move on to talk about some of the disadvantages of this account. Now, a few disadvantages, as I've mentioned, that this account is associated, it is paired with a high deductible health plan. And that high deductible health plan may not be the best plan for you if you are someone who has a lot of healthcare expenses, and therefore you might want to have a plan in which you will not have to pay out-of-pocket copays and deductibles. If you're someone who has to use the healthcare system and have chronic illnesses, then you may not want to pay those additional copays to get to that higher deductible in order to invest this money. It may not work out for you logically from a financial perspective. Additionally, the HSA account often comes with fees, just like our 401ks, our 457bs. So you want to make sure that you factor in the cost of those fees and the returns of your investment to understand what is going to be the benefit, or if there's a way in which you can minimize the fees associated with the account. Next is if you withdraw the money and you don't use it for healthcare expenses, particularly before the age of 65, then you might have to pay a penalty on that withdrawal. Typically, the penalty amounts for those who are withdrawing the money and not using the money on healthcare expenses before the age of 65 is a 20% penalty plus taxes. So remember, I said that you didn't pay taxes, and if you use it on healthcare expenses, then you won't ever have to pay taxes. But if you take the money out for another purpose besides of an eligible healthcare expense, then unfortunately, you may have a penalty and you may have a tax. However, if you take the money out after the age of 65, then you would have to pay your ordinary income tax on that money if you choose to use it on something other than healthcare expenses. Now let's get into the hacks So I've already alluded to it, but let me tell you that this is a triple tax advantage account, in which basically that means that it's tax-free, that you will never have to pay taxes on this money. And if you know anything about me, I mean, you just watched the last YouTube video. If you didn't, let me just remind you, you can find it right here. I talk about how to minimize my taxes as a salaried physician. And if there's a way that I can like legally not ever pay taxes on money, then let me know, because I'm in there like swimwear. I want to do that thing, that legal thing that I can, so that I can avoid paying taxes. So let me tell you about this legal thing that you can do to avoid paying taxes. So here you are at the young age of 25. You just started your dream job as a lawyer, or now you're a physician. You're climbing the corporate ladder, and your employer offers a healthcare savings account. You watch this video and you're like, oh yeah, Brittany has told me all about how to use this account so that I can use it to save on taxes and for my wealth strategy. Now here's how you're gonna implement the wealth strategy. So you're gonna opt in for your healthcare savings account. Check, done. Now you have that paired with your high deductible health plan. You're gonna take that money, that maximum contribution that they're offering for that year, and any employer contributions, and you're going to invest that money. Ideally, you can invest it yourself. You choose your favorite mutual fund that is returning some amount, hopefully between 6 and 12%, and you let that money sit. You contribute the maximum every year. You let that money sit, and it grows tax-free, and you never pay taxes on that money as it grows. So you didn't pay taxes on the money as you put it in. Now it's growing. You don't pay taxes on that money. And then you have healthcare expenses, because we all do. I had 2 babies. Oh my gosh, it costs so much to have a baby. From the epidurals to the stitches, from the NICU stay, whatever the case is, babies cost a lot of money. So I have my babies, I go to the doctor, go to the dermatologist, and I pay these expenses today as a 20-year-old, as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old, and in my somewhere record, Google Drive, Dropbox, I keep the receipts for the expenses that I paid today. I allow this money to keep growing. I have done some math for you, so give me 1 second. So if you contribute, you're gonna say $3,600 every year for a 6% return, and you do that for 30 years. So you would have contributed $108,000. Your total amount would be $305,000. Okay, so that is a difference of $197,000 that you would have in growth. And so you take those receipts that you accumulated in your 20s when you had your baby, or your 30s when you had your baby, in your 40s when you got your first mammogram, in your 50s when you have your colonoscopy, whatever the case is, all of your healthcare expenses, and you take all of those receipts and you say, hey, I want to get reimbursed. Give me my money. It is time for me to get my money. But guess what? You have so much more money because you allowed that money to grow and allowed compounding to work for you. As soon as you turn 65, you're like, I'm tired of saving receipts. Give me my money for all of the healthcare expenses that I've had between the years of 20 and 65. You get your payout, and then you have more money that you can use for healthcare expenses from 65 and beyond. And as that expense occurs, then you can easily just submit that receipt, get that reimbursement, and it does not have a required minimum distribution like other accounts. So that means that money can sit and grow and grow. So you don't even have to take your money at 65. If you want to wait a few extra years, then by all means do that and just keep saving your receipts. So this is why it's called the Stealth Roth IRA, because you won't have to pay taxes at the time of withdrawal if you're using it for healthcare expenses. And as a physician who's also a money coach, just guess what? Listen, when you get old, you get sick, you're gonna have some healthcare expenses. And so this is one of the ways to really safeguard yourself from incurring that expense, having to use your other income from your 401k or dividend income from other investments, and you have this specified account for your healthcare expenses as you grow old and beautiful and ripen like a grape. Another advantage of the healthcare savings account is that you can name your spouse as a beneficiary or name your children as a beneficiary. But the benefit of naming your spouse as a beneficiary is that if your spouse acquires the HSA, then your spouse also gets to benefit from all of the tax advantages just as if it were you. So that means that they can allow the money to grow tax-free, and if they use it for qualified healthcare expenses, then that money will not be taxed. Now, if you pass it along to your children or your cousin or your trust, then it becomes taxable income, but you can still use it as a mechanism to build generational wealth, but that money just will be taxable for them at that time. But if your spouse is a beneficiary, then they get all of the tax-free benefits that you do as the owner of the account. To summarize, there are 3 things that I want you to take away. 1, you should start today at your young age saving in the healthcare savings account. 2, think of it as a retirement account. Don't take that money out. Don't use that money today. And 3, if you invest the money and you use it for qualified healthcare expenses, then you will never ever have to pay taxes on that money. And so it is a way for tax-free wealth. And that is what we're all striving for, but legally, right? So if you liked something, if you learned something from this video, then hit the subscribe button, drop it in the comments below. And I want you to have a good day, a good week, really dive into your finances. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.